Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udire Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtaki. So continuing with the discussion on Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita by Satsuru Maharaj, Volume 1, A Lifetime in Preparation, India 1896 to 1965, Chapter 5th, The War. So Abhay, Srila Prabhupada, he was working on his magazine Back to Godhead, but government stopped giving him the paper. And one night he saw Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj in his dream, asking him to take sannyas. In 1945, the war was over, and India still in turmoil under British rule. Abhay saw a good opportunity to make his business more successful. In Lucknow, 600 miles from Calcutta, he rented a building and opened his own factory, Abhay Charan Dey and Sons. It was a major investment requiring 40,000 rupees to start, and he began on a larger scale than ever before. Also, according to law, to ensure that he was not dealing in the black market or misusing chemicals, he had to employ 3 government inspectors. Yet, despite a high overhead, he established a good market and his products were in demand. He closed a small operation in Calcutta and concentrated on the Lucknow business. Although the building was known locally to be haunted by ghosts, Abhay had not been deterred. But when he began his operation, some of the workers came to him frightened. Babu, Babu, there is a ghost. Abhay then went through the entire building chanting Hare Krishna, and after that there were no more complaints of ghosts. So ghosts can be there. It's not that ghosts don't exist. Yes, they do exist. But until it's very powerful ghost. By chanting of Hare Krishna or by nursing Arti, or like in Hanuman Chalisa it is said, Bhoot Pishach Nikat Nahi Aave, Mahavir Jab Naam Sunave. So that is true. They run away hearing these holy names. But why do they run away? Because they get purified. And of course, they cannot harm devotees of the Lord. So even in Europe, I don't know if devotees bought the building or they were doing some business over there, something was there, and the ghosts were there. Now and devotees, what they did Harinam over there, Kirtan in the building. And the ghosts, and they saw things were flying by, the ghosts were throwing things at them, but not at them, a little bit away, so it won't hurt the devotees. And after a while, the ghosts left. Now somebody will say, how come in Europe or America they understood the Hare Krishna chanting? Well, Hare Krishna chanting can be understood by the soul. Of course, our ears are not used to it, but the soul can hear it. So anyway, I mean, this is a fact, but if we don't have faith, I don't want anybody to go try it in any haunted building. But Prabhupada, this is what Abhay then went through the entire building chanting Hare Krishna, and after that there were no more complaints of ghosts. On November 13, Abhay wrote to his servant Gauranga, mentioning some of his difficulties in Lucknow and asking him to come there to help. In this letter, Abhay spoke bitterly of his wife Radharani and children. Gauranga Prabhu, please accept my obeisances. He's writing to his servant Gauranga at his home, and he's saying, please accept my obeisances. Can you believe it? So much respect to a servant. Of course, from Prabhupada's perspective, Everybody is part and parcel of God, Krishna. But people in general, they don't give this kind of respect. I received your letter dated 7th. Due to lack of time, I could not reply in time. I stay here alone with some servants. If I leave now, then I have to close everything down. Due to my leaving once and closing the business, I have lost about 10,000 rupees, and the goodwill has also been affected, and my enemies have increased. That is why I am fighting, practically staking my whole life. I am staying here all alone in the middle of so many difficulties, not for nothing. That is why I was writing to you repeatedly to come here. As soon as you receive this letter, show it to Dabra. I don't know who is Dabra. Take at least 10 rupees from him and come here. When you come here, I'll make arrangements to send money to your home. What's the point in holding you back with an excuse that there is no servant or maid servant? I try to serve them enough by keeping servants, maid servants, and cooks. But up until today, they have not become attached to devotion service. So I'm no more interested about those affairs. Means about his wife, he's saying. When you come here, then I'll go to Calcutta. If I see that they are interested in about devotion service, then only will I maintain my establishment there. Otherwise, I'll not maintain them anymore. Bring a quilt for me. Yes, obviously in Lucknow it's a little colder than Calcutta. The two interests, family and preaching, were conflicting. Radharani had never shown any interest in Back to God. She seemed to work against his enthusiasm, both for publishing and for earning. The business was called Abhay Charan Day and Sons, and yet the sons were disinclined to help. And when he had called for his servants to join him in Lucknow, the family had objected, saying they need Gauranga more there. What was the use? The family was interested neither in backing him in his business, nor in taking up the life of devotion service. And since his business was primarily an outcome of his family life, he resented that he had to give it so much of his energy. It was the old economic law by Marshall that he had learned in college. Without family affection, a man's economic impetus is weakened. Yes, why do he need to make so much money if there is no family? Of course, there could be a compatible balance between family service and devotional service. Bhaktivinoda Thakur described two simultaneous obligations, bodily and spiritual. Social status, mental development, cleanliness, nourishment, and the struggle for existence were all bodily obligations. The activities of devotion service to Krishna were spiritual, and the two should parallel one another. In Bhaktivinoda Thakur's life, his family was a source of spiritual encouragement, and he used his social position to advance his preaching. But Abhay's experience had been different. The two paths seemed to be at war, each threatening the other's existence. He felt himself operating somewhat like the materialist he had criticized in his writing, absorbed in the struggle for existence with insufficient time for self-realization. Although his family made more and more demands of him, he was feeling less inclined to work for them and more inclined to preaching Krishna consciousness. It was a predicament. He could only push on diligently, support his family, expand his business, and hope for a great success so that he could revive his publishing. So, I mean, we can see here, Krishna was removing every attachment. Family already, Prabhupada had started developing detachment from them, and business also. So he tried in Allahabad, he tried in Bombay, Calcutta, and now he's in Lucknow, where he will fail again. Krishna is going to take away his business also. But the Lucknow factory seemed almost beyond his means. He had purposely begun on a large scale with the aim of making a larger profit. But monthly expenses were high. He had fallen behind in his rent, and now he was involved in a court case with the landlord. Although he was visiting Calcutta regularly and shipping raw materials from Calcutta to Lucknow daily, he always found his family members in Calcutta uncooperative. His servant Gauranga was also reluctant to work as Abhay required and was thinking of going back to live with his family. Abhay again wrote to Gauranga on the 23rd. Offering my humble obeisances at the feet of the Vaishnav, Gaurang Prabhu, I have received a postcard dated 18th November 1945 and got all the information. There is no need to come here just for a month after spending the money and then go back. For the present, take 25 rupees from Dabra and go home. Write a letter to me after your arrival, then I will send the rest of your money in 1 or 2 installments by money order. Then from there, you let me know when can you come here. I've started my work here in a fairly big scale. You have seen that with your own eyes. So if there is no income, who will spend for a court interrogation? Everything is on my head. The brother and sons are just eating and sleeping like a bunch of females and breaking the axe on my head. You go home as soon as you get the money and try to come back as soon as possible. Yours, Shri Abhay Charande. So he's saying the brother and sons are just eating and sleeping like a bunch of females and breaking the axe on my head. So no cooperation from the family and no success in business. Right. So there ends the chapter 5. We can start chapter 6. An unknown friend. Let the sharp moralists accuse me of being illusioned. I do not mind. Experts in Vedic activities may slander me as being misled. Friends and relatives may call me frustrated. My brothers may call me a fool. The wealthy Mammonites may point me out as mad, and the learned philosophers may assert that I'm much too proud. Still, my mind does not budge an inch from the determination to serve the lotus feet of Govinda, though I am unable to do it. Madhavendra Puri. Aside from his difficulties with business and family, Abhay had to survive the cataclysms of Indian independence and partition. He was not active politically, but was one of hundreds of millions affected by the violent dawn of Indian independence. When Gandhi and Hindu-dominated Congress were demanding a united free India, the Muslim League led by M.A. Jinnah called for partition and their own Muslim nation, Pakistan. The conflict raged. In August 1946, the outgoing British government invited Jawaharlal Nehru, Congress party president, to form an interim national government, but the League objected. The Muslim cause would be denied. Jinnah had already declared August 16 Direct Action Day, which amounted to little in most parts of India, but in Calcutta erupted the Hindu-Muslim rioting. In 5 days of violence, 4,000 died and thousands more were wounded. In the months that followed, Hindu-Muslim rioting repeatedly flared up throughout India. Early in 1947, when the new Viceroy, Lord Mountbatten, met with Indian political leaders to plan transfer of power, riots again broke out as Muslims demanded Pakistan. At the threat of civil war, Congress finally agreed on partition, and on July 18, the Indian Independence Bill passed without dissent. 1 month later, India and Pakistan emerged as independent nations, with Jawaharlal Nehru as India's first Prime Minister. Partition tore India, leaving 5 million Sikhs and Hindus in Pakistan and as many Muslims in India. And the Great Migration began. Refugees fleeing from Pakistan to India and from India to Pakistan clashed with each other and even with their own countrymen of the opposing faith. And the violence that erupted claimed hundreds of thousands of lives. Yeah, and it still happens, the violence. Prabhupada. Our independence movement was started by Mahatma Gandhi for uniting all the different sections of the people. But actually, the result was that instead of being united, India was partitioned. And the partition became so poisonous that formerly there was only sporadic Hindu-Muslim riots in some places, but now there was organized fighting between Pakistan and Hindustan. So actually we were not being united, we were being separated. The Hindus would go to the mosque of the Muslim and break it, and the Muslim would go to the temples of Hindus and break the idol, and they will think we have finished the Hindus' God. Just like the Hindus also think, oh, we have broken their God. They were all ignorant. God cannot be Hindu, God cannot be Muslim, God cannot be Christian. God is God. We have seen in 1947 Hindu-Muslim fighting. One party was Hindu and the other party was Muslim. They fought and so many died. And after death, there was no distinction who was Hindu or who was Muslim. The municipal men gathered them together in piles to throw them somewhere. They fought, and in Bagh Bazaar, there were heaps of dead bodies. And when it is a dead body, nobody could understand who was Hindu and who was Muslim. Simply, it was to be cleared from the road. Abhay was not expecting Indian independence to bring any real solutions. Unless the leaders were God conscious, what change would there be? Now he saw that instead of suffering at the hand of a foreign rule, the people were free to suffer under their own countrymen. In fact, the fighting and suffering had increased. Throughout the years of India's political struggles, Abhay had never lost his desire to propagate Krishna consciousness. He had seen how promises of unity and independence had brought mostly higher prices and civic mismanagement. He had seen neighborhoods where Indians had lived peacefully for generations erupt in hatred and rioting. And in the wake of British and Indian diplomatic manipulations, it was as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had described it. Persons who are strongly entrapped by the consciousness of enjoying material life and who have therefore accepted as a leader or guru a similar blind man attached to external sense objects cannot understand that the goal of life is to return home back to Godhead and engage in the service of Lord Vishnu. As blind men guided by another blind man miss the right path and fall into a ditch, materially attached men led by another materially attached man, are bound by the ropes of fruitive labor, which are made of very strong cords, and they continue again and again in materialistic life, suffering the threefold miseries. So that's a real problem. Anybody we follow materially, he cannot liberate us. Only thing is, it's just going to increase our stay or prolong our stay here in the material world. Go through the cycle of birth, death, old age, disease again and again and again. The Vaishnava prays to his spiritual master, who has opened my eyes with the torch of transcendental knowledge, and he feels obliged to help humanity by bearing the same torch. As a representative of the eternal Vaishnava Parampara, Abhay wanted to shed the light of transcendental knowledge onto the field of current crisis. That had been the purpose of Back to God, although since 1944, he had been unable to print the magazine. But even without the means to publish, Abhay continued writing. His most ambitious project was Gita Upanishad, his translation and commentary of Bhagavad Gita. Gandhi and others often spoke of the wisdom of Bhagavad Gita. Indians never forgot the Gita, but most proponents did not teach it as Krishna had taught it. They would not recognize Lord Krishna, the speaker of the Gita, as the supreme personality of God, but would extract his words as slogans to bolster their own philosophies. Whether political leaders, religious leaders, or scholars, they almost invariably made their own symbolic and allegorical interpretations. Abhay wanted to present Bhagavad Gita as is, It was to be 1200 pages, 3 illustrated, beautifully bound volumes. For Abhay, but the books were already a reality from which he was separated only by time. Over the past 2 years, he had accumulated hundreds of manuscript pages. He wrote in notebooks and on loose papers and then typed the numbered manuscript pages. He could never give the book his full time, but gradually it began to take shape. He also preached Lord Chaitanya's message through letters, writing to many leaders in the government, to respectable acquaintances, and to people whose articles he had read or whose activities had caught his eye in the newspaper. Presenting himself as a humble servant, he wrote to them of his ideas on how India's original Krishna conscious culture could be applied as a successful solution to all manners of dilemmas. Sometimes his letters drew replies, and Abhay would respond, fanning the sparks of interest wherever he found them. A well-known reformer, Mahendra Pratap Raja, was forming what he called the World Federation. Abhay had read a news sheet which Mr. Pratap had published from Vrindavan, in which he addressed all nations and peoples of the world and called for a unity of mankind. Abhay wrote to him suggesting that Lord Krishna's teachings in Bhagavad Gita provided a theistic science capable of uniting all religions. Mr. Pratap replied in May 1947, I admire your deep study of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. I myself am a great admirer of the great classic. I assure you that I am working strictly according to the book. Mr. Pratap mentioned his book, Religion of Love, and suggested that Abhay read it if he wanted to know the World Federation's view of religion. In the meanwhile, Mr. Pratap wrote, I do not agree to his suggestion of making the name of Krishna or Govinda as a basis of the unity of religions. This would amount to conversion and won't lead to unity of religions. I highly appreciate your efforts in the direction of back to God. See, yes, people have different ideas. And just like here, Mr. Pratap, he said, I don't want to use the name of Krishna because that will lead to disunity. But when Prabhupada established his society, he called it International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Although his followers at that time suggested, why call it Krishna consciousness? Just call it God consciousness. So everybody will be able to come in. But Prabhupada was strong. He said, no, people have to know who is God. Krishna is God. So he was adamant. He was hard-headed in that direction. And yes, it bore fruits later on. But not everybody followed what Prabhupada wanted them. So that's okay. That's how it started. Okay, I guess I can stop there. See anybody have any questions? Okay, you always safe and wonderful day. Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Ram.
Hare Krishna.